So, how do you set up a simple and easy saltwater aquarium? Well, let's find out. Okay, so a little bit of a disclaimer before we get started. Is this the best saltwater aquarium setup in the world? No. Is this going to work for every coral and every fish? No. But this is a very affordable option for somebody who wants to get started in the saltwater aquarium hobby, and it's going to work for a majority of like the top 10 easiest fish. You can throw some snails, some hermit crabs, some shrimp in here and have a nice aquatic marine setup to get started in this hobby. So the reason this isn't the best system is because it's a little small, but this is kind of like that nano setup that I'm doing. I don't really need a big aquarium because I don't want to have any huge fish. And also another thing to consider is the light that comes with this is going to be a little bit too weak for corals. Now, this is the Fluval Flex standard model. They have a marine model, which actually has the stronger LED lights. So if you end up doing that, which I do recommend, that's perfectly fine for a number of corals. And I would recommend you use the Fluval Flex Marine, but specifically in my case, they didn't have that at the store, and I was kind of, impatient, so I just bought the freshwater model of the Fluval Flex, but that's still perfectly fine. So we're going to be going over this setup. I'm going to show you how to set this up, what is included in all of this, get it up and running, and start our saltwater aquarium hobby.
All right, so what supplies are we going to need? Well, first of all, you need your aquarium. I, of course, went with the Fluval Flex. It is the freshwater model, but it won't really matter too much, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. We have an OASE heater that heats up to 25 gallons of water. That's great for our 9-gallon aquarium. We need it for all the tropical saltwater animals that are going to be in here. They require some warmer temperatures than room temperature. Then I got a bag of live sand because this has a lot of beneficial bacteria in it, so we can cycle our aquarium faster. And then this is just an example. It isn't a live rock, but you also want to get some live rock. And next thing is some salt mix. If you're not getting pre-mixed water from the store, you can mix it up yourself. If you're going to be using tap water, of course, you need a dechlorinator, and that's not the best thing to use, but you can use that and just measure the salinity with a salt meter. But it is better to use reverse osmosis or distilled water if you have it. And then the last thing I like to use is a bottle of this live bacteria. You shake it up, you pour it in the aquarium, and it helps cycle the aquarium faster. If you have the live sand and the live rock, you don't really need it, but I like to throw it in anyways. And then this is just an example of some additives that eventually I use, like the extra calcium and then some trace elements. Also, you're going to want to get a thermometer so you know what temperature it is inside of your aquarium. All right, so here we have a 3-gallon glowfish aquarium, which I was using as a saltwater aquarium for one single sea snail. But I figured, you know what, I need to upgrade because I want to keep more fish and invertebrates, and plus the larger water volume helps keep the water chemistry a little bit more stable. So here we have the Fluval Flex 9-gallon freshwater aquarium. Now, this can be converted to saltwater, which is what we're going to be doing in this video, but there is a Fluval Flex Marine you can get. Now, what's the difference? Well, the Fluval Flex Marine comes with stronger lights, so you can grow corals, and also has a protein skimmer, which will clean your water a little bit more than just the filter. Now, do you need the protein skimmer? No, not really. And do you need the stronger LED lights? Well, I'm not going to be growing corals, so I don't need it, so you can kind of just make that decision yourself. So we took that rubber mat out, put it on the cabinet. That helps with the pressure points. Here we see the lid, small LED light. Like I said, I don't really need it. And then here we have a manual and just that remote for the LED lights. It comes in all sorts of colors. Of course, I'll just be using the white to grow coralline algae. And then here we have our filter sponge. It comes with ceramic beads, which help grow beneficial bacteria, and some activated carbon. And then here we have the return pump, which is going to be moving the water throughout our aquarium. There's the pump, then you have kind of this elbow on top, and then you have that output that has actually two outputs on it. So that's kind of cool. You can have two streams of water inside of your aquarium. So what I do is I open all of those bags up. Here we have the ceramic beads. Those go on the bottom. That helps grow beneficial bacteria on it, which will break down the waste compounds from your fish. And then the activated carbon absorbs some compounds, and then the sponge also just acts as a biological filter. So it slides back in there. I recommend you rinse that off before you add it because there's some dust on the activated carbon, but for the sake of the video, I just slid it back there. Here we have this pump, and I wanted to make sure that tube is tightened on there into the pump, and then here we just screw the elbow in. There's a hole, so you add that output, that Y-shaped output, and you just screw it into that elbow joint back there, and then pretty much we're good to go. The next step is just going to be adding our sand and our live rock to this aquarium. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is dump in the live sand. This is just a bag of sand that's packaged wet. It has a lot of beneficial bacteria on it, and that beneficial bacteria is going to help filter your water by breaking down the uneaten fish food and the fish waste. So I like to use that live sand. I dump it in, and then the live rock is kind of the same concept. It's rock that has been in a saltwater aquarium for a number of months. It has a bunch of live bacteria on the surface that helps break down the fish waste. Now, some people say don't add the live rock because it can come with pest anemones or some pest starfish, but you can kind of remove those by hand and throw in a peppermint shrimp that eats them. So I still use the live rock because I like to throw in the most biological components I can to get this aquarium cycling right away. And then also some of that rock has that nice pink coralline algae on it, which I really like. So I wanted to throw in a piece of that as well. So I still use the live rock. Now, can you cycle an aquarium without it? You can, but like I said, just a personal preference. So next thing we have here is the heater. I like to set it to about 77. You want to make sure which fish you're keeping and what temperature you need yours at. But I feel like 77 is a nice average temperature. So I threw it in the back component there. That's going to be heating up our water, and then we're pretty much good to go. All that's left is to add this old filter media from that old 3-gallon that I have. You don't need to do this, but if you have some filter components you can add from somebody else's aquarium, that just helps cycle your aquarium even faster. So I'm just going to toss it in here and then swap it out at a later date once we already have all the bacteria cycling in our aquarium. All right, so I didn't mention this before because I felt like it's obvious. You need some buckets to move salt water to and from your aquarium. So I've got a 5-gallon and a 2-gallon. And I recommend when you're making your salt water, you use reverse osmosis water or distilled water, which you can get at the grocery store. And if you're using tap water, use that marine conditioner. I tend to kind of be lazy. Sometimes I use the tap water. I've never had a problem with it in the past. So I just dump it in the bucket and I add in this old pump that helps mix up all the salt and a heater to heat it up to 77 so that the water is the correct temperature right away. So like I said, use the reverse osmosis water or the distilled water if you can. That's kind of the best advice I have. I personally just use a tap water because I don't really care. So here we have half a cup of instant ocean sea salt per US gallon. That's the range I'm going to mix it at. And then of course it's a good idea to have this salinity meter to double check. I use it at about 1.022 or about 30 parts per thousand. You dump the water in there and then the arrow floats up and down to tell you what your salinity is at. Okay, so of course the last step is to dump in the water. Now I'm dumping in the water from this old aquarium. It probably doesn't have too much bacteria in it because the bacteria tend to live on the rock or on the sand, not in the water column. But I figure it's still better than nothing, so I dumped it in here. And then I'm gonna dump in the rest of the salt water that we just mixed up in the bathroom. And so that's pretty much it. That's gonna finish the setup of our Fluval Flex for salt water. We just plug in the heater, we plug in the pump that starts circulating the water, we turn on the lights because I like that coralline algae to grow right away. Some people say don't turn on the lights because pest algae might grow, but what I found was that the coralline algae started growing right away, and after about a month it was already inhabiting that back white panel, so I like to turn on the lights. And that's pretty much it for setting up a Fluval Flex for salt water. Now the biological cycle is a little bit more complicated. What you want to do basically is just throw in some fish food, it decomposes and it helps build up your bacteria levels. You wait about 6 weeks before you can add fish, just to make sure that that bacteria is built up. But I can talk about that in a later video, go all in depth into the ammonia spike, nitrite, nitrate, testing your water, what levels it should be, how it all looks. But here's the basic concept. We threw in everything I had, the water, the live rock, the live sand, a heater, plug it in, and it's just going to be cycling and sitting there for about 6 weeks. So I'll come back with some more saltwater videos in the near future. You can hit that subscribe button down below to be notified when I come out with those videos, but I think that's going to be it for today. Here's my new Fluval Flex 9-gallon saltwater aquarium.